All right, Saints fans and Houdads from all over the world. This is Kyle T. Mosley here with the Saints News crew. I got John Hendrix in the house. What's going on, John?
Not too much. Exciting day, right? Almost hadn't had this much excitement since the draft, I guess. And then it's going to quickly fade away.
Yeah. And I got Bob Rose. Let's have the Bob.
Not much. I hope everybody is staying safe, happy, and healthy out there.
Awesome. And I got Brendan Boylan. What's happening, BB?
Nothing much. Just like everybody else, most excitement we've had since the draft. And like John said, it goes away real quick, so let's soak it in and enjoy it. And hopefully we're in the stands or in the press box come September.
Yeah. Let's pray, guys. All right. So, guys, the NFL 2020 regular season has been released. And the New Orleans Saints we have some great games ahead of us, right, John?
Yeah, 5 primetime games on the docket. So they've got 3 at home, 2 on the road. And instead of playing a Thursday night game this year, they get a Christmas game, Friday game, special game with the Vikings coming to town. So it's pretty interesting because they'll have 3 before they get into their bye week, week 6. It's like people want to see the Saints play and I guess some of these matchups. But not only that, but some of the late games. I mean, I think 6 of them are late kickoffs. 5 of them are 3:25 kickoffs. One's at 3:05 at the Broncos game. So, look, I think there's only a few, 4 or 5 noon games. So this is going to be a pretty crazy schedule coming up.
Yeah, that's what I was looking at, man. These late games and some prime time games are going to be pretty exciting for the fans. Well, will the fans be in attendance, right? Bob, what's going on? What do you think about the Saints schedule?
Well, like you guys both pointed out, there's a lot of marquee matchups. I mean, who doesn't love, this league is quarterback driven, obviously. And we know we have Breeze versus Matt Ryan twice a year. Well, now you got Breeze versus Tom Brady twice, Breeze versus Patrick Mahomes, Breeze versus Aaron Rodgers. And the NFL schedule makers certainly took advantage of that. And I know we'll get into the depth of the schedule in a little bit here. But there's one thing that infuriates me about what the NFL did to New Orleans. 3 straight road games late November into December is absolutely ludicrous, guys. But yeah, I mean, outside of that, how could you not be excited? This is when you start making your travel plans. And making win-loss predictions and things like that. So it certainly gives the fans a lot to talk about, especially since we're not looking at mini camps or anything like that.
Yeah, we don't know about the mini camps. We don't know about the fan attendance. We just don't know what's going to happen as far as having any type of interaction with the outside right now. We do know, Brendan, that they are pressing ahead. What are your initial feelings about the Saints going forward, especially the first few games that we have?
I think the biggest thing when it comes to fans in the stands, Kyle, is you look at what some of these states across the United States are doing right now. There's a couple that are opening up. North Carolina will be opening up tomorrow, starting phase 1. I know Georgia has already started reopening some things. You can go get your haircut. So I know for me, I've really thought about going all the way to Georgia just to take care of that. But I think it's kind of those are almost test runs, see how things go. Obviously, New Orleans is one of the hardest hit cities in the United States with the outbreak. So if I had to make a prediction early on, I'd say that the fans are not in attendance for maybe the first month or 2. And then at some point you're able to get the fans there. But when you first look at the schedule, I think the first 3 weeks are really intriguing because you get Brady, you get Derek Carr, and then you get Aaron Rodgers. 3 good quarterbacks, 2 elite quarterbacks, and Derek Carr wasn't too far off just a few years ago to face off against Drew Brees, so it should be fun right out the gate.
Let's talk about that, John, right out the gate. Brady, Brees, the showdown, the duel of the legends. Number 1, number 2, all-time passers in the National Football League. How do you feel about that matchup?
Well, we talked about it on the show not that long ago. We knew that they were going to get at least one of those as a primetime game for the NFL to put them right front and center at the 325 spot. I mean, that's got to be top draw. Fox, Joe Buck, Troy Aikman. That's going to be your America's game of the week, right? And so, look, I think it's the right way to start an NFL season and look for the Saints and You get Tom Brady versus Drew Brees. I mean, these are where you have the guys like Malcolm Jenkins who've come in that you signed to defend against all these weapons, and you're going to get to see a lot of different things. And so, look, I mean, the first few weeks of the NFL season, you got to kind of take with a grain of salt, especially if you're not going to have any type of mini camps and stuff like that, because we know it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And, prime examples, I remember the Vikings, they started hot 6-0, and I remember the Panthers had started 6-0 one year, and they didn't even make the playoffs, both of those teams, right? So, and especially if the Saints don't choose to go until August or July, late July, as far as their training camp, it'll be interesting to see how they come out of the gate. But obviously, if we've got fans back, if the Saints are able to the Who Dat Nation's able to get rowdy and get riled up inside the Superdome to disrupt Brady, I think that's going to be a killer matchup. So, look, you're doing it right from the very start, and that's going to be a lot of energy, especially going into the rematch when they play on Sunday Night Football in Tampa.
Yeah. What's intriguing also, guys, we have such good content that's going to come our way, right? We got Breeze, we got Brady, we got Bridgewater, we got Mahomes, right? We have some great guys that are going to be matched up with the Saints. Now, Brendan, if you look at what John was just talking about, as far as going into the season, and Bob brought up a good point about how the Saints are going to have those road games at the end of the season. Does this pair out to be a fair start that the Saints are going to have and a fair ending? Or is it just we got to look at what's going to happen in the middle to make sure the Saints get into the playing atmosphere, or should I say the being able to put on their playoff run?
I think the challenge comes right before the bye week. Like John said, you have, 3 primetime games before your bye week. What Bob said about the 3 games on the road late in the season. I think for New Orleans to start that way at the beginning of the season, have those games, it kind of plays out and makes it fair, quote unquote, to have those games late in the year. But that's the true test for New Orleans. I don't think it comes in the middle of the season. I don't think it's early in the season. It's those 3 games in the middle that include some divisional matchups. And that's where you're going to see this best team. And I know Sean Payton's going to have those guys ready right for that stretch. And from that stretch on, you're going to see, I wouldn't say a playoff atmosphere or a playoff kind of caliber team, but you're going to start seeing those guys get ready because they know this is a boom or bust season, right? It's Super Bowl or bust, especially with all the rumors circulating that this will be Drew's last.
Right. Look, man, let's take us through some more of the schedule. Bob, right after the bye week, the Saints have Carolina, Chicago, Buccaneers, 49ers, and the Falcons. That stretch right there doesn't seem that ominous on paper, does it?
Well, but it contains 3 divisional matchups. And you have to there's 2 things that NFL teams are most concerned about. Obviously, we know the mantra, you take it 1 week at a time. And I'm in full agreement with that. But you have to hold serve at home, and you have to do well in your division. And you mentioned the Panthers right off of the bye. That's a home game, and normally Sean Payton teams play very well coming off of a bye, but they sleptwalk through an Atlanta loss at home last year after coming off of a bye.
Sure did.
And we do expect the Panthers to rebuild. John, you were talking the other night about a new coach being in line with the Panthers and Matt Rule, and the offseason or lack of offseason is going to put those kind of new coaches, new quarterbacks, new players a little bit behind catching up with their system. And then you go on the road to Chicago. Saints have always played well in Chicago, but that's a tough place to play. Bears are a rugged team that's going to beat you up. And then you stay on the road for a Buccaneers matchup. It's not only interdivision, but again, you're on the road. Tom Brady, those offensive weapons there, and Tampa has always given the Saints trouble. And then you got the 49ers. And we know what the 49ers are going to bring to the table this year. They're one of the prohibitive Super Bowl favorites, as they should be. That's going to be that's at home. But the 49ers came to the Superdome and won last year, so that's going to be a big game for both teams. And then Saints Falcons. Do we need to say anything more there?
Definitely. And I'm looking at the 49ers, then going to the Falcons, right? Then going to Mile High. John, maybe we can go Mile High, man. What do you think?
Yeah, look, I think that's going to be one of the most interesting parts of the road trips. And I mean, again, you start that 3-game stretch going to Denver, and then you got Atlanta, and then Philly. So, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a travel. I don't think it's unbearable, but Denver is going to be an interesting place to play. Obviously, NFL's not going to have any international games this year. That could have been a potential candidate. Same thing with the Falcons game, but obviously the NFL nixed that with everything that's going on. So, look, Denver's an interesting team. I mean, Drew Lock is presumably going to be their guy, and they loaded up in the draft, have really talented wide receiver weapons, and even going back to what Bob was talking about, Chicago. It'll be interesting to see what if it's Nick Foles or Mitch Trubisky, and if they have 10 tight ends or 5 or however many they trim it down to, Jimmy Graham, right? But with the Broncos, I mean, look, the Saints traditionally haven't been able to get over that hump. Last time they met, the Broncos won on that controversial sideline 2-point return play, and I think last time the Saints were in Denver and. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Denver beat them up while they were in last time they were there. So, I mean, so typically it's, the Saints have to exercise some demons, but obviously I think they can do it. But Denver is going to be a heck of a fun time. And when you go to Atlanta, that's going to be always a fun time. If you're a Saints fan, you haven't gone to Atlanta to check out that stadium. I mean, it's amazing. It's really nice. And then Philly, I think, is very underrated. Just depends on, Carson Wentz. I think that could be a very underrated quarterback matchup. So really good road trip stretch that they have, but obviously 3 straight, it's a little bit tough.
Yeah. Going to the Origami Stadium, then going to the city of brotherly love. Then you have to go to back home. Wow, we get Patrick Mahomes, Bob, man. My homeboy. How do you feel about playing my homeboy?
You can't argue with what the Chiefs did last year. Finally breaking through with a Super Bowl title, and that offense is that Andy Reid offense is always going to be dynamic. But it's been dynamic on historic levels. With Patrick Mahomes, that track team they have at wide receiver. Listen, all offseason, I have been showing concern about the depth that the Saints have in the secondary, particularly at the cornerback position. This is exactly the kind of matchup that could give Dennis Allen and that Saints defense absolute nightmares. Every year, even with the improvement of the Saints defense over the last 3 seasons, every year we'll see 1 or 2 shootouts where both teams are in the 40s or higher. If you're going to project, this probably is going to be one of those matchups.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. Look, Mahomes is going to bring it. We know Breeze is going to be up for the challenge. We know that Sean Payton is not going to let Andy Reid walk out of here with a W, so it's going to be one of those great games. I anticipate a lot of firepower just like you. But then, guys, we got to wrap up the season against the Vikings and the Panthers. Now, Brenda, I was kind of surprised, and John, you may need to chime in on this as well. I thought it would have been a great idea to have that Tom Brady matchup somewhere in here instead of having Kirk Cousins as well as ending the season. It's like our annual end the season with the Panthers type of deal, right?
Obligatory way to close out the year.
Yeah.
Carolina, always.
North Carolina. What's your feeling about Kirk Cousins this year? Do you think that Vikings team is ready and primed? They lost some pieces. They let Diggs go. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think you said it best, like with Diggs leaving, Xavier Rhodes, who I think is still a very serviceable corner in the league, walking out as well. Right. Let's not forget, this team was in the playoffs for a reason last year. Dalvin Cook is still one of the best up-and-coming backs in the league, and we've all talked about it, right? The quarterback's best friend is the running game, and seeing Dalvin Cook be able to finally turn the corner, especially after the terrible ACL injury after a good rookie year. The Vikings are still a threat. Kirk Cousins is a guy that gets the short end of the stick and a lot of jokes throughout the years because of his inconsistent play. But like I said, this is a guy.
He turned it around on us. Unfortunately,
he did, and there's a reason he got paid. There's a reason he's one of the 32 starting quarterbacks in football. There's a reason his team was in the playoffs last year. So I think Minnesota's still a very dangerous team. But like you said, to have that kind of Christmas Day matchup, which is something you don't see in the NFL a whole lot, and they're going to be going head-to-head in the ratings with the NBA, who's notorious for having countless Christmas Day games. Maybe if you're the schedule makers, you would have liked to see Brady, Breeze, or just another top-notch opponent. Even if you push that Mahomes game to Christmas Day, that might have been a more favorable matchup for viewership that aren't particularly Saints fans. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you're closing out the year in North Carolina. And as you guys said, it seems just every year, your last week of the season, you're up in North Carolina. But let's not forget, that might be a little different than years past. You might have to be playing your starters in that game with the new playoff format.
True. Well, looks like I will be in New Orleans for Christmas. So, John, just make a room for me. I can just get my PJs and hang out with you and the fam.
Yeah. Look, it's funny because I joked about it. I was like, look, the last thing is because I've covered it on Thanksgiving the past couple of years, obviously being at home once and then Atlanta last year. And I family's really understanding. I'm like, just no Thanksgiving, and how they reward me. They put it on Christmas, which, I mean, again, I can live with that because more Christmas means a lot more to me and my family, but, we'll be able to share that and stuff. But that'll be interesting, an afternoon game. And I think the NFL is experimenting with a couple things. That's probably a good thing. Ratings equals money. So it'll be a good time. And, get your Kyle Rudolph puns and all your other Santa-related things ready because it'll be an interesting time when that happens.
Yeah. That's good. All right, guys, let's kind of wrap it up. Now, the Saints, on paper, they say the strength of schedule for the Saints with the opponent's winning percentage at 49%. But they also said this schedule is 24th in the league. Bob, this is not a 24th ranked schedule, is it?
No, absolutely not. And I pay very little attention to winning percentages from teams last year. I realize you have to go by something, but like John pointed out, the Denver Broncos are expected to be much improved. We know divisional opponents. You can throw records out the window there. A Christmas Day matchup against a Vikings team that did go to the playoffs. But that's only 5 days removed from a showdown against the defending Super Bowl champions. I more or less like to focus on when the opponents are scheduled and things like 3 straight road games or what kind of home stretch you have. So no, this is not a 24th ranked schedule at all. You have an early bye week, which means you better keep your fingers crossed that you're going to stay healthy down the stretch, because you're not going to have that extra week to heal up guys. We saw how important 2 of the last 3 years, we saw how important a bye week would have been to the New Orleans Saints. So that doesn't escape Sean Payton and the coaching staff and all those returning players. And now, with the NFL in the midst of changing their playoff format, those buys are going to be more crucial than ever. So there is no rest for the wicked down the stretch. You got to play your guys. I don't care if the Carolina Panthers come into Week 16, with 1 win on their record. It's a divisional opponent and it's on the road, so you have to take that kind of thing into consideration.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
Piggyback off of what Bob said. Look, I remember in the 2014, 2015, 2016, that was all they talked about. Saints had a very easy strength of schedule, and look how that turned out. So the strength of schedule is meaningless. Yeah. These teams are going to be better. There's nothing that's given. And again, like I said earlier in the show, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And there's plenty of teams that you can look over that started hot and ended up missing the playoffs. So it's all how you play down the stretch, and if you can get some heat and momentum going into the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. At home, Brady, Rodgers, Cousins, Mahomes, Ryan, Jimmy G, Bridgewater. Man, what can you ask for? Well, let's go on the road. Brady again, Bridgewater, Wentz, Trubisky, Ryan, Luck, and Carr. These are not pushover quarterbacks, guys, right?
Definitely not. And look, hey, here's what I would tell you. So here's the thing, and this is the beauty of having Saints fans, right? The Saints did a great job this year. They actually identified, resellers, the people that were buying the season tickets and just selling off the games, right? So the idea is that it's going to be more affordable for the fans to be there and actually have Saints fans in the game. So you guys remember the 49ers game, and I was there. It was so much red. And I mean, don't get me wrong. People love to come to New Orleans. People love to do it, but I don't think you've totally seen the full impact of what the Dome can bring because of some of that stuff. And, I think it'll be interesting if you get any of those quarterbacks in there in that building with that type of atmosphere, with a full force of fans. It is going to be tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. One thing one writer brought up, will the NFL, just in case fans cannot be there, will they allow piped in noise? We shall see. Atlanta does it all the time, right? But anyway,
wasn't going to go there, but you did.
All right, John, I know it's too early to tell, but what will be your prediction for the season already?
Man, last year it was tough because I didn't see 13 wins. I was more like 11, maybe 12. I think maybe my record was 10-6 is what I did, 10 or 11. I see similar. I think 11-5. Again, don't flame me, don't roast me. This is just way too early because I think the competition stiffened. I think the Saints are great on the road. I think some teams are going to try to emulate what the Vikings and Falcons did against them last year. This is why they drafted Cesar Ruiz and why they're trying to shore up their interior, because teams are going to know how to attack the Saints on their offense. So Sean Payton and them are very creative. They upgraded. They got Emmanuel Sanders. You bring in Troutman to the mix, Cook, Hill, all these different weapons to help you move the ball. So, again, I think early on it might be a little tougher. But again, I think 11 pushing 12 just because of the competition that they're facing. You can't sleep on games late in the season. Again, that Vikings game is going to be critical. The Chiefs are going to be no pushover. I mean, the Eagles are even an underrated game in my opinion. So look, couple all that, I can't sit here and tell you this is 14, 15 win season or 13 win. They're going to have to grind it out in the trenches and really do some things. Kamara's health is going to be crucial. The defense is going to look a lot different, even though a lot of the people are going to be the same. So that's where I'm going to stick with. I'll stick with 11-5, 12-4 upward ceiling right now.
Okay. Babo, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, 12-4. 12-4 sounds about right. I saw a comment a minute ago in our comment section predicting 14-2.
Please, I wish.
Me too. And this Saints team is certainly talented enough to do that. You're talking about a team that went 13-3 over the last two regular seasons. Right. So and they are probably more talented on paper coming into this year. So are they capable of going down to 14-2? Absolutely. But I wouldn't bet the kids' college fund on that. I realistically just taking a glance at the schedule and, again, the type of opponents, where they're facing them, when they face them, and, the almighty equalizer injuries, which are going to happen during the course of the season. I would probably agree with John. I would say 11-5, 12-4. I would lay down a hefty sum that the Saints will come away with their fourth straight NFC South title. And certainly be in the mix for a number one seed. But yeah, if I had to lay down money for a record, I would say probably 12-4.
Okay, awesome. Brendan, what are your thoughts?
I think the biggest thing to remember is something that John had said earlier, and that's with the weird times we're in right now. It's going to make it extremely difficult for new coaches, new coordinators, and new quarterbacks to get accustomed to their systems. And there's two in the division, with Teddy Bridgewater going to Carolina that has a new head coach and a new offensive coordinator, and of course Tom Brady going to Tampa Bay. So it's going to take some time for those teams to get going. So to Bob's point, I could easily see the Saints go ahead and clinch another NFC South title, but it's not going to be easy. The old saying is win at home, split on the road, and 9 times out of 10 you're in a good spot to win your division, your conference, whatever sport you want to go into there. So I think that's got to be the goal for the Saints. Obviously the goal is to win every game, but the realistic goal is let's try to go 12-4, 13-3, somewhere in that boat. But I could see the Saints falling to even 10-6 And that, going to Bob's point, is where these games are, that 3-game road stretch late in the season. You get Mahomes, and then those division games late in the year. Like I said, that Week 17 game, there's been times in the past where that Week 17 game in Carolina hasn't meant a whole lot. You look at last year, you look at some years prior, that game has not meant a lot in Week 17, and you've seen Breeze sit that game occasionally as well. But the new playoff structure, that game is going to be important, and Carolina could be playing for something as well. So let's not sit there and act like that game is just another Saints have clinched a playoff spot. Win or lose, it doesn't matter.
Right.
We're between 10-6 and 12-4. Like I said, win at home, split on the road, and 9 times out of 10, you're in good shape.
Okay. Well, guys, I tell you, a couple of the games really scare me. And in the positions they are, that 49ers game scares me. The Falcons game coming back from the Broncos, that scares me as well. But like you said, the great evener is injuries, but also due to COVID-19, it may be lack of preparation and knowing your team. So we shall see how everything goes. We still have a good core of people still with the New Orleans Saints that have returned. And I think, John, you brought that up in one of your articles. That is so crucial for the Saints for this season, right?
Yeah, look, and I mean, I'll say this too, is I think top to bottom, and again, with my record predictions, right, I still think the Saints are the best team in the NFC. I don't think there's any question about that. I get the 49ers are returning. They've also lost a bunch of pieces to their puzzle, and I think they're going to have a tougher time trying to not become the next Rams team that just falls off the face of the planet. I think Seattle is going to push them really hard. I think Arizona is going to be better. I think if you had to look at it, I think the Cowboys are also going to try to make a push. I know that they got the talent, right? But still, if you had to ask me right now, I think the Saints are on top. You might make the case that 49ers and Cowboys would be 1, 2, and 3. And then I don't know about the Packers. I felt good about them. Then I saw what they did in the draft, and it doesn't look like they got too much improved, especially losing some people in the back end. So look, I think this is the Saints conference this year. And again, it's not how they start, it's how they finish. And ultimately you're looking at a squad that, this is why Sean Payton drafted the guys they did, because you needed smart people. You don't need people that you can hold their hands, you have to hold their hands for the first day in training camp. Guys that are smart like the Ruiz, or the electrical engineer like Troutman, or the guy like Bond who's really matured from when he was started at Wisconsin to where he finished at Wisconsin. Right. All these guys you get in, even Malcolm Jenkins, Emmanuel Sanders, these guys are smart. They're seasoned veterans. They know what it takes to win in the league. So some of them got Super Bowl rings. Some of them got tons of experience. So that's all going to be super important, especially if you're facing a time where you're not going to have these mini camps, mandatory mini camps, rookie camps, all this crazy stuff. It's just going to be straight to training camp. So I feel good about this team and their leadership and what they have.
Man, great points, John. And not only this, those undrafted free agents, those are some pretty smart guys too. And I really liked what I heard from Keith Washington last night when we interviewed him as well. All right, guys. John, tell everybody how they can follow you on the World Wide Web.
Well, hopefully you guys see my fantastic name somewhere over here. I'm trying to adjust. But if you go to at Twitter, it's at John J. Hendrix. Hendrix just like Jimmy. So definitely check us out at Saints News. Schedule's up. Take a look. Start planning some road trips if you can. Hopefully, feel good about that, obviously. And then weighed in with some thoughts on the schedule already. And we're going to have a lot more to weigh in on the schedule, because get ready. It's going to be a little bit of a lull until we carry to July and August.
Definitely. Bob, how can they follow you on the World Wide Web?
Well, folks, and anybody that's tuning in tonight, thank you so much for your continued support and for tuning in with us. And the easiest way to follow all of us is simply through the Saints News Network and SI.com. As far as me personally, go on to Twitter at BobbyR2613, or on Facebook under Bob Rose. And don't forget about our Bayou Blitz Facebook page as well. It's where we streamline all of our articles and live show appearances, along with an opportunity to interact with thousands, creeping up on thousands, plural, of other Saints fans. So we want to thank you, everybody in the Bayou Blitz Facebook group as well.
Awesome. And Brendan, how can they follow you on the World Wide Web?
Well, just to piggyback off Bob, thanks for all the support over the last couple months. I know in some of the meetings we've had, we've grown a lot since October, guys, and I'm really proud of this group of guys, and especially the support from the readers and the fans. So thank you guys for that. Personally, you can follow me at BT Boylan. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of it. Really simple, all the same thing, all the same place. BT BOYLAN.
All right, cool. And guys, I am Kyle T. Mosley. You can follow me at KT Mose or just follow me at Saints News. This is Kyle T. Mosley with John Hendrix, Bob Rose, as well as Brendan Boylan. Guys, thank you for tuning in to the Saints Release program. Follow us on si.com/NFL/Saints for all the latest Saints news in the Who Dat Nation. You guys have a great evening. Who Dat, baby? Take care.
Have a good night.
Good night.